Welcome back everyone, I'm Setharoth, and welcome to my first tutorial type video. I thought it would be fun to dive into ways to power level your character, because whether you're a beginner or you're in late game, some of these little tips and tricks might be beneficial to you guys to get up as many perks and as much power leveling as you can. I've already tried the initial steps of this build in my Skyrim playthrough, and up until like the Throat of the World, every time I've needed to heal, I've just used that point you get at when you level. Like when you level up and you get a point, and when you raise your skills, you get all your health back. I've already got through to the Throat of the World, and I have never had to use healing potions yet. So that's how fast my character is leveling. I'm not even using health potions because it just keeps generating perks that quickly. Now, the fundamentals that I'm showing in this video, these aren't set in stone, right? Like you can tell that I'm doing a sword and shield type, but you can add in elements of this strategy to just about any type of character, whether you're doing a mage or a thief or a fighter. Feel free to take what I'm developing here for this character and then apply it wherever you feel it will benefit your character the most. So the first thing I want to look at is obviously combat. Now, your combat abilities, if you're coming from like a D&D game or your standard RPG, you get your armor, you grab your axe or your sword or your hammer or your dagger, and you grab your health potions, and that's it. And you just go to town, right? And that does work for most games. Skyrim is a little different though, because as you use various skills, you not only level up, but you gain perks. And those perks are what you're going to be constantly starving for, particularly when you branch out from just your offensive skill and your defensive skill. So without further ado, let me jump right into it and show you what I mean. I'm going to switch to Stone Flesh for starters, which gives you an armor spell that lasts for a couple minutes, which should be more than enough time for this for what we're trying to do here. We've got a bound sword and then our dwarven shield. Alright, so we've cast the alteration spell. We've got our shield for block, and we've got our bound sword for one-handed. And we've got apparently a very cowardly little kitty cat that's going to be wailing on us a bit. So far so good. So the interesting thing about what I've done here is I've stacked skills on top of each other. What that means is when I take this hit, I'm boosting my heavy armor skill. I'm also boosting the shield skill when I block. And I'm also boosting the alteration skill that's in charge of my defense, right? That's giving me magical enhancements. Now when I attack, I'm getting a boost to my one-handed because I'm using a sword, but I'm also getting a boost to my conjuration because it's a conjured weapon. So I know it doesn't look like much, but think about this for a sec. In one fight, I went in with alteration magic, and you can also use stealth. Like I could have sneaked up to this guy and use that. Just a few seconds of not being detected also boosts your sneak ability. So in this one fight, I actually was able to implement 5 different skills at the same time. And then, of course, after the fight, throw on the healing, and boom. So in my standard combat, as I'm going through bad guys, as I'm questing, I am leveling up 6 different skills simultaneously. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but after you've gone through an entire dungeon and you're leveling up 6 different skills at every fight, look at that, I just boosted my conjuration just by switching to a conjured weapon. And of course, when I swing that weapon, I'm going to get one-handed skills in this case. Come on. There we go. Alright. Yeah. This is not going the way I wanted. I decided for this test, I have a powered level battle mage, but he's still like level 10, and I'm still in the middle of that playthrough. So I actually hijacked a different character. This is, you're about to see what this guy can do. This is my mage. I have maxed out his destruction and his enchanting so that his magic costs like nil. But that's a conversation for another time. Anyway, the point of this demonstration was to show you guys how to power level your abilities as you're leveling up. And given that I'm a mage and I have no skill in block, no skill in one-handed, and that is a Hagravian, so we're going to try and be a little more careful about this. There we go. And we're just going to keep wailing. Since the Hagraven uses magic, the block skill is not going to... Oh no, she's trying to claw me. Perfect. And that'll give us a chance to boost the block skill. There we go. Come on, keep it coming. Alright, we're going to duck back and get some healing. Notice I've also I've used enchanting to also boost my magicka, or reduce my magicka cost for restoration. So as long as I can still do my thing, the game can continue. Alright, here we go. Now you switch to block when they're attacking, and that kind of alternates because if you just regularly get hit, you regularly take damage, that goes to whichever armor skill you are wearing at the time. You have to actively raise your shield and block the hit in order to gain experience in block. So you do have to, if you're going to incorporate block into your power leveling, you do have to alternate between the two. But I really do like that particular approach because block is a great one for going up against the squishies. You know, Skyrim gives you a good combination of bandits and creatures that are not really dangerous, and then throwing you things that really are dangerous. So when you're kind of tussled between those two, it's great to grab something like shield. Even if you're focused on leveling thief skills, you can get a light armor shield, just so that you're raising that skill without necessarily putting points into it, right? You're not putting perks into it. You're using it to generate perks that you then put into whatever you want to specialize in. And I think this guy's a dark elf. I think my character is a dark elf, so the fire isn't too much of an issue. But since he's not melee, I can't really raise the block skill. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If you're up against a spellcaster, don't worry too much about using the shield, which technically means I could be throwing in like illusion magic here or destruction, but you get the idea. Alright, so just remember before you go into a fight to throw on the alteration magic, right? So you've boosted your armor. And then when you're actually going through combat, you will be raising your alteration magic, your armor, your attack type, if that's one-handed or two-handed, possibly your block. Basically, in a single fight, and particularly if you're using restoration magic afterwards, you can be power leveling 6 to 8 different skills just through the course of your regular gameplay. So that's going to level you up. Let's say you have a regular character that runs through, and you grab your two-handed weapon and your armor, and that's it, right? So you're only really leveling up 2 abilities, 2 skills. And of course, it's going to take a while for you to generate enough perks to really power things up, especially if you get to the point where you want magic or to boost your smithing or to add perks to another skill. However, if you set up a build where you can stack things on top of each other, like you need a one-handed weapon anyway, so you get your bound swords, so that also raises your conjuration, and you can still use your one-handed damage. Now, of course, if you're up against a really big boss, you want to change this to whatever style you're preferring, whichever one does the most damage, whether that is being a battle mage or shooting fireballs or what have you. But when you're fighting the squishies and you're just leveling up, your bandits, your draugrs, your wolves, this is a really good way to incorporate as many skills as possible, that torch bug is really high, into your gameplay. So we'll go ahead and level up and show you guys what we're looking at here. So you notice in that fight I was boosting Conjuration. I could have added in Destruction easily enough. My guy's already tanked out in that, so I wasn't worried. Then Conjurate and Restoration, that's 3. Alteration is 4. Heavy Armor is 5. Block is 6. One-handed was 7. So in that exchange, if I had used Sneaking to get up to them, for example, and used Alteration beforehand, that would be 8 skills that I was using in every combat encounter, which will level you up 4 times faster than if you were just using a single weapon and your armor in combat. So that's a great thing to keep in mind when you need to power level your character if you want to generate perks as quickly as you can. Hello, Mr. Wolf. I don't know why he's staring. For a second there, I thought it was like my pet, because he just walked up by me and like stared out at the butterflies like, yes, you clearly have the desire for butterfly. I support you. But according to the cursor, he's a bad thing, so we're going to take care of that. Interesting choice of maneuver. If I was dealing with a rabid wolf, I don't think kicking him in the jaw would be my first point of attack. When I was in Argentina, they have wild dog packs all over the place, let me tell you. Kicking them in the jaw is not your first move. They all get in on it, and then you wonder why you have a pack of dogs circling you. Not fun. Not fun. Alright, so the next step of power leveling is what do you do during this? Especially in early game, before you've got your map set up the way you like, before you can fast travel everywhere, and you've just got to hoof it. What do you do? How do you level up? Because let's face it, when you've got a 10-minute hike to High Hrothgar and you're just walking like this, it's really not that engaging. And it's one of my least favorite parts of the game, at least before I figured out this particular strategy. It works very well, and it does wonders for your leveling when you're traveling. Alright, so obviously the first step of leveling when you're traveling is picking your flowers, because when you get to town and you've got hundreds of ingredients stocked up in your little jet pouch, that's going to do wonders for your alchemy skill. But you guys probably already knew that since it's fairly obvious in the game, so we're going to pick out some other abilities that you can take advantage of. The first one is the Muffle spell, which is actually one of the first illusion spells you can buy. It's not very hard to get, and which is nice because it means you don't have to be a really high-powered character in order to get that taken care of. And if you give me a moment to deal with these guys, I was not expecting bandits at this point, so we're just going to go ahead and deal with them. And yeah, you can tell I went with I like destruction. There's a reason I personally have a harder time working with companions. I do want to do a playthrough where I rely on them a little more, just because it gives more flavor to the gameplay. But I have a tendency to set a lot of things on fire, and most companions do not survive that for very long. So, moving on. The next step is the Muffle spell. The Muffle spell is fantastic because while certain abilities are scaled to the point where, actually I'm not sure if there is a quest involved here or not. Let me just double check. We've got a bandit, we've got a chest, gold, lockpick, okay. Where was I at? The nice thing about the Muffle spell is even if you're level 90 and you're casting Muffle, you still gain experience towards future level ups. So you can technically level all the way to 100 with the illusion spell, just casting Muffle as you travel, which is fantastic. And in early game, when you're just starting out, it only takes a couple of castings to bring your illusion up another level. So even if you're not doing a thief or a sneak type character, it's a great ripcord to pull if your your two-handed fighter needs an extra perk or what have you. Doing some illusion while you're traveling is a great way to stock up on that. I don't like distractions. Okay, let's try and switch back to the example. The whole point of this was to show you guys how to do this in combat, and here I am hurling fireballs. So let's go find some more bad guys. Step 1, I need more mana. What's over here? Another wolf? That'll work. That'll work nicely. Might have to switch to a cheaper spell, though, just to show you guys. You still get experience, even if you're using a lower level spell. And we will go ahead and wait for the mana for Bound Sword. But we can use this time to boost the block skill. That's right. Come on, keep chewing on me. Come on. So this is raising my block and my armor. And I've almost got enough mana for Bound Sword. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so this gives me Conjuration and one-handed damage. Oh, come back here. You started this, I'm finishing it. There we go. Alright, so what are your other options while you are traveling? Well, if you've gotten you don't have to finish the Mage Guild quest, but it's almost to the end of the Mage Guild quest that you find a couple spells that will also be useful. Over here in Alteration, you will find the Equilibrium spell. It converts health into magicka. Now, when I first got this spell, I was not impressed, because being a mage, having health was not easy to find or keep, because you were squishy. So I didn't really appreciate the full capacity of this. But what you can do is use equilibrium to convert health into magicka, and then use healing to convert magicka into health. For me, that works particularly well because my armor is already enchanted to completely reduce the cost of magicka to my restoration. But even if you're just starting out, or well, you'd be like level 15 or 20 by the time you got through the mage quest to the equilibrium. So this is more of a mid-game tactic. But this actually allows me to use alteration magic to lower my health, and then restoration magic to bring it back. And with a little bit of enchantments on your armor to reduce either your restoration cost or your alteration cost, either of those could work. This is a process that you can continue to use as you are traveling to level up both your restoration and your alteration. So that's another thing that you can do. That actually gives you 2, maybe 3 more skills that you can level up as you travel, particularly if you also incorporate the illusion magic, which obviously is the easiest to level up. My restoration is pretty high, so it takes a bit to level it up. Not as good for these live demonstrations, and somehow we got turned around while I was talking. Not sure how that happened, but we do the best we can with what we got. Alright, so we've covered how to power level in combat, incorporating 6 to 8 different skills whenever you fight, which gives experience to all of those skills and generates perks when all those skills level up. We've also covered how to boost your level progression while you're just traveling, which is a great way to take time that you would already be spending running around on foot and turning it into a way to power up some of your more powerful magics, or even just to generate perks for other skills that you need. But how can you optimize smithing? Obviously with smithing, your first step is going to be buying iron. Why? Because you've probably heard of the tactic of buying iron and leather strips and turning it into daggers, which is not quite what we're going to be doing, but it is a start. So what you want is iron ore, as much of it as you can find. This is just kind of for demonstration purposes. In my Battle Mage playthrough, I'll go into this in more detail. So we're going to go to the alteration spell Transmute, which I actually picked up from Tolfdir. And the way this spell works is you take an iron ore and you convert it into silver, or you take a silver ore and convert it into gold. So what I'm going to do here is, you noticed I think there are only 3 or 4 iron ores. I kind of switched into my old habits and bought a bunch of iron ignites, which this does not work on. Keep in mind, this only works on iron ore before it has been smelted. So if you're going to a mine to pick up your own ore, or you're just buying iron ore from a smithy, make sure it's the ore. That's what this spell works on. But you notice I'm able to just keep converting iron ore into silver and gold as I go through, and that raises my transmutation, or my alteration skill, a little bit every time. And then we go to the smelter. Let's go ahead and grab the gold. We then get our little gold ignite, and we can use that gold over in the jewelry section to make rings. Now the reason we go with rings is because the next step of this power leveling guide is you need as many products as possible. So if I had 10 gold ignites and I made 10 gold necklaces, that would only be 10 things that I can enchant. But if you go with gold rings, that would be 20. So that kind of doubles your production, right? So once you've taken as many iron ore as you can, and you've turned them into gold ore and gold ignites and gold jewelry, then we will take a pit stop over at the alchemist, because I like to fully grow my character, because you never know which skill you're going to need. You can kind of skip the alchemy if you want to, if you're not patient enough if it bugs you to pick up flowers as you're walking along or stocking up on ingredients, that's perfectly fine. But it's just another source. At the least, it's another source of perks, right? At the most, it is potentially a way to further enhance your smithing as well as your enchanting. Because if you look in the fortifies here, I'm not sure if I have the right ingredients. You can make potions for fortifying enchanting, and you can make enchantments to fortify smithing. So they actually, if you train all 3 crafting abilities, they kind of enhance each other. So your character can become far more powerful with all 3 than you would have with just one, because they enhance each other. So obviously you create as many potions as you can. Actually, once you get your alchemy skill up, even if it's only like 20, that's still a great way to give you experience, but also to make money, because those potions, as quickly as your Dragonborn can spit them out, do a lot. They're worth a lot of money. Last but not least, the pièce de résistance waits over in Dragonreach. I'm doing this smithing example in Whiterun because this is where your character starts out. So this is where you'll be starting your process, but you can do this process just about in any of the major holds as long as you can find alchemy, an enchanting spot, and smithing. Then you're good. So we're going to head over to the enchanting device over here. Oh good, we don't have to wait in line. And then we can, obviously I have a lot of items here, but for example I can grab my gold ring, pick an enchantment for it, and boost it however I want. And there we go, we just made a ring right there. This character already has enchanting maxed out, but so you can see the process, right? We're using alteration magic to create items, or to create the raw materials. Then we smith them, then we enchant them. And then because gold items are worth so much more than the iron daggers we always make when we're first power leveling our smithing, your gold intake is huge, right? Because your initial smithing upgrade is just punch out as many iron daggers as you can, sell them for 5 gold a piece, and that's it. But if instead you create like gold jewelry that's super expensive, and then you enchant on top of that, as your enchanting gets more powerful, again, it's a huge source of income. Right? There was a reason my guys got 24,000 gold, and I had to buy some spells, some pretty expensive equipment just to do this tutorial, and I still have 24,000 left over. So it's a great way to not only level up your character, but to make a lot of money in Skyrim. So if you're keeping track, we have figured out how to boost 6 to 8 skills in combat, how to boost up to 4 skills while you're traveling, and as how to boost 4 to 5 skills while you're crafting. Because remember, as you're doing your smithing, your enchanting, and your alchemy, you're using alteration to transmute, and then your speechcraft goes up when you sell stuff. And the interesting thing about speechcraft is you gain more speechcraft experience for more expensive purchases, for more expensive items. So your speechcraft will level up faster for gold jewelry than it ever will for iron daggers. And once you've thrown enchantments on top of that, it is even better and levels your character up even faster. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial so far, and if you'd like to see more tutorials of this type, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're more curious about this power leveling build, I have a Battle Mage playthrough going on right now, where I apply all of it. We just got to Throat of the World, so he's still a fairly low level, but like I said at the start of the video, I have never had to use health potions with him because he generates perks so quickly that he always has a level up to use for healing and magicka regen. So I'm excited to see what he can do in another like 30 to 60 minutes of gameplay, and we'll be just getting into that next week. So I invite you guys all to check out that playthrough when you have time. I hope you're all having a wonderful week, and take care. Have a great day. Bye.